Hi, welcome to the Mediatwits. I'm your host, Andrew Lee, at American University in Washington, D.C. The big news this week is the proposed merger between two information-age giants, Verizon and AOL. The telecom company will be paying $4.4 billion to acquire AOL, which still has 2.2 million dial-up subscribers. Many observers, though, note that in the age of mobile, the advertising technology AOL has as a major attraction, not to mention the content holdings that include the Huffington Post, Engadget, and TechCrunch. So does this deal of tech old-timers make sense today in the age of mobile? But first, a word from our sponsors. Running your own business requires a focus. So does parenting. Mediatwits podcast sponsor Nextbase created a place where parents could give their best quality of attention to both. Co-working space and childcare space under one roof. Learn more at nextbase.us/nextkids. Also, MediaShift has launched a new series of online trainings called Digital Ed in partnership with top journalism schools. We have one-hour courses covering everything from iPhone audio reporting to starting your own venture. Real-world media training for the digital age. Sign up at digitaledcourse.com. So here to talk about the Verizon-AOL merger are our esteemed panelists who cover the media industry. We have Ben Popper from The Verge. We have Rob Meyer from The Atlantic. And we have Ricardo Bilton from Digiday. Let me start with you, Ben. What do you make of this deal, and what exactly is Verizon getting for $4.4 billion?
I think it's a really interesting deal. I don't think $4.4 billion is very expensive for Verizon. And what it shows is that they're interested in taking the assets they have, which is a lot of dumb pipe and a lot of information about mobile subscribers, and layering on top of that the ability to offer those subscribers premium content, video content, mobile video content, and then advertise against that.
And I guess it's tough for folks who just view this from the outside that AOL hasn't really been relevant in the consumer's eyes, but it seems like behind the scenes there's been some significant moves by AOL to have state-of-the-art ad technology.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Armstrong is a smart guy. He came from running a lot of sales at Google, so he learned there about the value of the real-time ad exchange, real-time bidding platforms, and he's been building that at AOL, specifically focused on video and on mobile, and a lot of people view that as sort of the ascendant vertical in the content space. If the cable television industry is the iceberg that's slowly melting, the thing that will take its place is, those formats. And, yes, AOL is a shadow of its former self, but if you look at where the growth in the company is, it's that specific area.
Right. Rob, what do you make of this as well? I mean, do you see that ad technology in AOL is something that is worth paying attention to in the face of the behemoths like Google and Facebook, which have a lot of user data about you already?
Right. I mean, I think the interesting thing, you see Google and Facebook are the two giants that are cited, right? They control 40% of the digital ad market together and 55% of all mobile ads together. So they are the two giants, and they both bring that unique sort of data. They bring, whether it's social or the kind of Google amalgamated search, email, whatever you have in there. Verizon already knows a lot about its mobile subscribers. Something I've been thinking about, which I haven't seen reported out, perhaps for good reason, is that Verizon inserts a cookie that is opt-outable for every mobile user. So Verizon knows basically like what sites you're visiting, which it knows because it's pipes, but also it is tracking for all of its subscribers kind of where they're going and what they're doing with their phone. That sort of knowledge seems exactly to me, that sort of data seems exactly the kind of data which would allow you to compete with the likes of Facebook and Google. I am not sure what legal restrictions exist on them using that, if any. However, depending on how willing they're able to use it, I can see that being the kind of leg up they need to enter the mobile ad market with the rest of the giants.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up. So it was this Verizon super cookie controversy that happened a little while back, and I think Verizon just recently introduced a way for users to opt out of it, but by default, it still attaches this cookie to all outgoing traffic from a Verizon handset. Is that right?
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. Basically, it's like 50 characters that gets inserted into every website that you visit with your phone. There is now, basically after reporting and some user outrage, there is now a way to opt out of it. But exactly, for the vast majority of Verizon users, this is just information which Verizon has about them and information that will continue to collect. And that is the kind of what's most interesting to me when talking about Verizon potentially entering the digital ad market.
Right, right. Ricardo, what do you make of this? So, Verizon has, hardware and subscribers and ostensibly tracking information about the habits of mobile, and mobile's more important than ever. Is this a good deal? What do you make of this?
Well, I think like Ben said, I think Armstrong was looking at where the puck was going in this case, and like you said, the two ascendant verticals here are mobile and video. And what really, this deal is all about the ad tech, obviously, and it's specifically how it's going. They're going to take a piece of the video ad market. The spending for video advertising is going to hit $12 billion by 2018 in the U.S. alone, right? So that's a big chunk that they could theoretically take from this by having a role in the buying and selling of these video ads. So I think it makes a lot of sense from that vantage alone. As Rob was saying, you sort of have the data aspect here, which is huge, right? Combining what Verizon knows about its subscribers with with the targeting that can enable through AOL's technology is really powerful, and it really checks all the boxes. Now the problem with advertising online now is it's race to the bottom, it's sort of commodified. Well, what's happening here is that it's sort of checking all the boxes. You're checking the attribution side, the data side, and the targeting side. So it's going to create a pretty compelling value proposition. Maybe nowhere near as valuable as Facebook and Google, but still a pretty good end-to-end solution. If you talk to media buyers, people on the agency side, they love what AOL is doing because AOL is going from one end of the stack to the other, and it's been really successful so far if you look at their earnings. So I totally get why Verizon is doing it.
So it seems like you're saying that Google and Facebook may be dominant right now, but they may actually be tied into search and the Facebook app, and they may not be as nimble perhaps as an AOL that can start doing other things. Like I think in the press release they even mentioned something about the Internet of Things and how they want to get into more location-based stuff and things like that.
Yeah, Verizon could sell you anything that can go into your house, right? I don't think they have done it, but they've done stuff with sort of smart devices in the home, right? It's sort of like a weird thing to think about. That's valuable data. That's vectors for learning stuff about people, and that can be valuable down the line.
Right. And then it comes to the other side of the value proposition, I suppose, which is the content properties. So certainly some folks have been looking at Huffington Post as being valued as much as $1 billion. So right away, $1 billion of that 4.4 is value in HuffPo. What do you folks make of this in terms of content? Is Verizon going to keep them? Are they going to spin them off? Or what are your opinions about that? Ben, perhaps?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it. What I've read is that there's a lot of interest in acquiring the Huffington Post as a standalone property, less so in some other of the ones that they highlighted, TechCrunch and Engadget. I think that probably for Verizon, there are some concerns about trying to do this in a way that doesn't raise any regulatory scrutiny now or down the line. So the same as we've seen with other large mergers of telecommunication networking companies and media companies. So for example, like Comcast and NBCU, they had to agree to a lot of ongoing restrictions about what they could do with that content, how they would favor it or not. I think Verizon would probably like to avoid that, and so spinning out the media companies, which reportedly are not profitable anyway, seems like an easy decision.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really see a scenario where Verizon really wants or feels the need to have the media properties. I think they're, like Ben said, they are reportedly not profitable. Media is sort of like, it's not a great business for the most part. It's really hard. It's really expensive what you get out of it. And the deal wasn't about the content sites to begin with. So I could see, I think the only wrinkle would be that video is a big part of this, and both Huffington Post and TechCrunch have been doing a lot of stuff with video. So I don't see maybe Verizon holding on to the sites in that way, but if they were going to have sort of a partnership deal or sort of a spin-off operation where they're going to be using those video assets but not necessarily have them within sort of the core AOL business, I could see that kind of deal. And I could totally see any number of other media companies buying Huffington Post, or even Huffington Post doing its own thing. But I don't really see the scenario for Verizon really holding on to them.
Right.
I think the other thing too is that Verizon has already once thought about entering content, and especially it already once thought about entering content in like the technology journalism world, which is where two of these main entities are. Last year it said it was going to open a technology site, a news blog, but that blog then it came out wouldn't cover kind of issues which Verizon had an interest in, meaning mostly net neutrality at the time, and then it just said, oh, we're not going to do this at all. So Verizon has already had the opportunity to have a business in kind of the sector of media which it now owns two pretty big outlets in. Or would own two pretty big outlets in, those being TechCrunch and Engadget. And I think that if it wasn't interested, maybe now that it has a leg up, it would be one reason to hold on. But I think if it has already showed an interest of not really wanting to be in the media game.
I mean, what was it? Sugar String?
Yeah, it was. I was trying to remember the name.
Yeah. Sugar String. I'm not sure what that's a reference to. It's a very memorable. It's an amazing name. But I mean, that was a doom from the start, right? Nobody wants to go to a site about technology that is created by Verizon because it seems inherently compromised. I think it would be possible to continue running TechCrunch and Engadget, which are established sites with editorial credibility, and if you demonstrate that you're completely hands-off and you see aggressive Verizon coverage on there, maybe they can maintain or continue to grow their audiences. But yeah, I mean, I think Verizon is trying to see parts of the future, but in other ways, it's clear that nobody really knows right now, what things are going to look 5 or 10 years from now. And I think that is what's so exciting is like as the sort of pay TV and cable TV comes unbundled, and we see a lot of new offerings in video and in mobile, on demand, and streaming. These legacy monoliths are trying to maneuver themselves into that new space. AOL is one attempt at that, but I don't necessarily think there's like a super clean explanation, right? I think that there's like the obvious ad tech explanation, which is a fine way to frame the sale, but there's also just the fact that it's not that expensive. It's a win for AOL investors, and like it's one chip that you can put down as a play towards what might happen next.
Right. I mean, there's so much of the tech news today revolves around mobile and what Verizon, AT&T, and these folks are doing. It's hard to imagine them keeping these tech properties or tech reporting outlets under that roof going forward. How about the little odd relic of AOL still having 2.2 million dial-up subscribers? What do you folks make of that? Is it just people who have auto pay on their credit card and just never canceled it?
My dad had it for like 10. I mean, I don't remember when we got AOL sometime in the mid '90s, and we didn't cancel until the mid 2000s. He was just really attached. I mean, he still uses his AOL email, and he still often visits AOL as like his primary internet portal. So he was convinced to stop spending the $20 a month, but he hasn't given up on AOL at all. He's a lifer.
It's funny for me thinking about AOL as like the platypus of tech companies because it retains all these vestigial parts of like older attempted business models. Like it has a subscriber side, and then they tried to do the content thing, and now it's doing the ad thing, and it's slowly being sold off.
Well, yeah, now they don't. I mean, it's not even America Online anymore. It's AOL,
Right.
right? So it's a branding thing they've been trying to do for slowly. I mean, it's a funny gag. I mean, every time AOL's earnings come out, it's like, well, AOL still has X number of subscribers. AOL's making. I mean, it's still a pretty big part of their business. It's 25% of their revenue, 606 million last year. So they can't exactly get rid of it overnight. But I think it's a declining business, and they obviously, I'd hope, see the writing on the wall and realize they had to shift away from it. I'd be interested to see what Verizon ends up doing with it in the long term. But yeah, it's just they can't. It's just that's AOL for most people. I think that's what's so funny. The branding challenge that AOL has had is this very thing. Is like people didn't realize AOL owned these sites. People didn't realize AOL had this ad tech thing. It's just this weird branding problem they've had for a while.
I wonder, if the AOL name will survive. Like that's something I'm very interested in, because I have so much sentimental attachment to it. Like my first screen name, my first email, my first chat room, that was all AOL. And it doesn't really make sense. I don't know if it makes sense to keep it anymore inside of Verizon, but I'm curious to hear what happens with that.
That's a great point. I mean, one of the other news items that came out this week was Facebook launching the instant articles feature, right? So that there actually be people publishing in Facebook. And then if you look at things like Snapchat Discover and Yahoo News Digest and apps that encapsulate all that content, it's funny that these are actually walled gardens of content, which looks strangely like AOL did back in the 90s. So maybe AOL was onto something with that original walled garden, because we're kind of coming back in a walled garden mode in some ways, in terms of content being locked up in completely controlled environments. Is it possible that maybe Verizon is looking to revive AOL as something that looks more like a Snapchat Discover or something like that?
I mean, for me, the interesting, I doubt it. I think the difference between, or a difference between AOL, the classical AOL, and these current sites are Snapchat Discover, Facebook. Those are built on the top of social networks, and the thing that gets people to come back are that their friends have posted something there. I saw reference this week to when the New York Times unveiled its instant article, as did the Atlantic, I should add, under full disclosure. It was like type the keyword New York Times into your AOL bar and then go. Which is actually what the experience is like. Like you type New York Times in, and then it sends you to the page, and then there's the article. But the difference, right, is that they're social networks, and the thing that gets people to come back, it seems, especially to mobile apps, is that their friends are saying things there. That at the heart of Snapchat, yeah, there are the video from other channels, from other content providers, but is that your friends are sending you snaps. So that would be, I guess, the reason I would imagine Verizon might not be interested in getting back into the portal world.
I mean, there will be some, attempt, I think, by Verizon, they've said, to launch, their own either mobile or over-the-top or both video streaming service, maybe even this summer. So they're going to be packaging their own content for the people who are their subscribers. They said it might be a mix of, free and paid and ad-supported. So, for the first time, they're going to be offering up something that will look a little bit like, a news portal. Perhaps they already started giving some subscribers access to, for example, NFL games. But yeah, what they and AOL lack is exactly the social network, the sort of connectivity that makes you want to come back again and again.
Yeah, the portal model hasn't gone away. It's just evolved into this sort of everything. I think the line is like every app extends till it gets communications functionality. That's sort of what happened with the portal model. I mean, but also I think Yahoo is still one of the biggest sites on the web, right? So it's not as if that model has gone away. It's just been sort of superseded by sort of the communications-based one of Facebook and Twitter as well.
Right. Perhaps the AOL brand's greatest drawback is the America part of that. And I remember in the early days trying to get folks internationally to go onto AOL to do instant message. A lot of them was like, well, I'm not American. I'm not going to use that service. Or the branding of America so much on that, definitely colored it a certain way for usage. So it'll be interesting to see how that works going forward. But thanks a lot, folks, for joining us on the Mediatwits. It was a really fascinating discussion. It'll be really interesting to see how this moves forward. So thank you for joining us on the Mediatwits. You can find us on YouTube and online in podcast format. See you next week.